The man tells Miss Agnes he has read through her letter of recommendation. She has only been a governess for 3 years. He then asks if there's a reason she left the Count's household that recommended her. She smiles and tells him it was for personal reasons. He fixes his glasses and looks at the recommendation letter while muttering personnel. She says, making her realize he is definitely suspicious. But she cannot exactly be honest either. She cannot exactly say she has returned from the future, let alone that his duke will be the one to kill her in 14 years. The third daughter of a baronet family, Agnes May Graham, was terribly unlucky. Though not wealthy, her family had been happy until they were ruined by fraud. Naturally, the engagement she was preparing for fell through as well. Since that day, marriage was out of the question. She had to work to survive. At first, she only meant to make ends meet before finding another marriage prospect. But the job she took out of desperation, governess, turned out to suit her surprisingly well. Time passed and passed and passed again. By the time she came to her senses, her marriageable years had already slipped by. But by then, what she wanted was in marriage. It was a stable life. She decided to raise one last child, retire and enjoy the rest of her life alone, so she chose her final post, the Marchioness of Reynold. Life at the Marquis estate went smoothly, just as planned, even if the young Marquis was a hopeless case, who at just 21, already had illegitimate twins, and needed home education himself. She planned to endure it all for just 5 more years before retiring. A child tugged at her dress, calling for her. She said she didn't see him and asked what it was. He replied he brought something for her and then showed her a bunch of flowers. She smiled at the children, and 3 years passed like that. But then the Marquis of Reynold was accused of treason. She was helping the children escape, who asked her if she was coming back. She hugged them before leaving. The guards captured her and put her in front of the Lord, accusing her of being the one hiding the traitor's children. That man told her to lift her head. When she did, she was shocked. He questioned where did she hide the traitor's children. She recognized him as the Duke of Battenberg. He was the Marquis' only family and he came in person. Only then it dawned on her how serious it was. Soon they brought another captive who pleaded to spare him, claiming he was innocent and it was a setup. He called the Duke his uncle, and told him he was his only family. He had to believe him. But the Duke said she left behind a fatal flaw and how fortunate that his mother passed away before seeing him like this. And then the Duke raised his sword at the boy. She instantly shut her eyes, and when she opened them, he was lying dead before her. She couldn't believe he killed his own nephew with his own hands. He then turned to her saying, even seeing this, she won't speak. Looks like she won't confess under pressure. He aimed the blood-tinted sword at her neck then. While glaring at her, he told his men they were just kids. Even if they ran, all they could do was hide, and instructed them to burn everything down. She thought, why did she have to die just because she got caught up in some foolish Marquis rebellion? One last time he asked her if she changed her mind. She opened her mouth but couldn't bring herself to speak. She knew she would die protecting the Marquis' children and she didn't want to die. But still, all those memories flashed through her mind and she knew there was no one else to protect those kids but her. She let him know he wouldn't be able to exploit them. He muttered what a disappointing answer and raised his sword to strike. As she looked at the Duke of Battenberg, she thought he should have raised his niece properly to begin with. He should have raised him so broken he couldn't even dream of rebellion. If it had been her and the Duke's. If only she had straightened out that spoiled Marquis Reynold personality from the start. Now that she sips her tea, she thinks for reasons she cannot explain when she opened her eyes. She had returned to the past, to the year she turned 20. She could run far away from the rebellion and live in hiding, but she couldn't pretend she didn't know those children. They must have known she wasn't coming back, and right now the Marquis of Reynold is just a 7-year-old boy, newly orphaned and entrusted to his uncle, the Duke of Battenberg. The man asks her if the tea suits her taste. She replies very much. She doesn't know how or why this happened, but this is an opportunity, a chance to save those poor children. A perfect change to fix that Marquis' twisted upbringing and to stop his uncle from killing his own nephew. She smiles at the man and exclaims the tea is delicious. And that she is absolutely delighted while thinking Marquis Reynold better start preparing himself. A golden opportunity. It might be a rather corny phrase, but returning to 14 years ago could only be described that way. After all, Timothy Reynold, the very one who led her to her death, is now just a 7-year-old child. His mother the eldest daughter of the Duke of Battenberg and his father the eldest son of the Marquis of Reynold. Port died in a sudden accident and it was the Battenberg ducal house that took in the orphan Timothy Reynold. She thinks the Duke hiring a governess now might just be a blessing from the heavens. She cannot afford to miss this chance. The man points out the letter of recommendation from the Earl of Westwick said he hoped she would keep working and also asked them to throw her out immediately. She forces a smile and says he is quite the prankster. The man then questions how were the children of the Westwick family. She replies they looked a lot like their mother, thinking of them as adorable little troublemakers. She would have worked another year if things were normal even after she quit before her regression. They stayed in touch often. He then steers the conversation and says she may have heard the rumors, but honestly this is not a job they like offering to young ladies. She pauses and repeats rumors. He questions if she came without knowing anything. She honestly replies she only knew the Marquis couple died in an accident and that the Duke took in his sister's son. Isn't that why they're hiring a governess? He hesitates but then admits actually it is more than that. They had quite a few people before she arrived. The last one had 15 years of experience as a governess, but even she couldn't handle the young master's temperament. In the end, she quit before the month was up. In tears, too, he quickly adds. They are specifically looking for a live-in governess to avoid any nasty rumors. He admits the young master is quite difficult, so scheduled lessons are nearly impossible. She quickly says that is fine by her. He notes it seems she has never worked as a live-in governess before. She blurts out she's planning to start now. He hesitates. Not sure 3 years of experience will be enough. She adds it is only 3 years, but she's proud to say she has lived a difficult life. He finally relents, saying if she insists he won't stop her but not to blame him later. She exclaims of course and asks if she shall start today. He gets to his feet saying he will show her to her quarters first. They will introduce her to the young master tomorrow. As she follows him, he finally introduces himself as Carlo Wischo. He tells her she can call him butler and now that she has been hired she should greet his grace, but he's so busy that they don't know when he will return. He assures her he entrusted him with hiring so she doesn't need to worry about that. She looks around at the lavishness and thinks as expected of a prestigious noble house. It's another level. Ethan Henry Battenberg of the renowned House of Battenberg, the very man who killed her and the Crown Prince's closest aide. A knight of exceptional skill but infamous for his cold and ruthless nature. She is determined not to let the same future repeat again. She wonders why people gush about how handsome he is. He's terrifying. If anything, Carlo assures her they will make sure she is well paid. She turns to him, telling him not to worry. She may not look it but she is a pro at handling little troublemakers. She is definitely going to handle the young master. As she steps through the door, the maid is already screaming for her life, jumping while the boy teases her with an insect in his hand. But the moment he sees the newcomer, he pauses and says what on earth is that? She smiles, swearing to turn him into a proper human being. The butler, standing nearby, points out that she hasn't even signed the contract yet. She shoots back that they've already agreed to hire her, hands him her bag, and assures him not to worry she won't run away. This is a matter of survival. The child watches them with a scowl and mutters that they're talking among themselves while there's a person standing right in front of them. Timothy turns to her and asks if she's the new teacher. She looks at him, thinking that if not for this kid, she wouldn't have died, but she reminds herself to stay calm. He isn't guilty yet. If she approaches him sincerely, with a heart that wishes for everyone's happiness, he will understand. But then he snaps at the butler, asking why he keeps bringing in ugly strays. Now she starts to wonder if sincerity can really grow in a place like this. She tells him that's no way to talk to an adult, but he simply shrugs, saying he only spoke the truth. She begins to say his name but he cuts her off, demanding to know who said she could call him by his name. Then he turns to the butler again and barks, "Old man, get this woman out of his sight." She silently repeats the mantra, "Stay calm," then glances at the maid and realizes he was torturing her with bugs. She plants her hands on her hips and tells him even if someone is of lower status, he must not torment them, calling him by his name. He retorts he told her not to say his name and tells her to get out. She declares she has officially been hired so he cannot throw her out and asks him to apologize to her. He asks if she is crazy. Who is he to tell him to apologize or not? He declares if she doesn't leave right now, he will make her quit with her own mouth. She lets him know she's not going anywhere and insists he apologize. He asks him to who. She points at the maid and replies to her. He knew she was scared and still bullied her. He asks if she wants an apology from her. Agnes snaps if she did something wrong, he should apologize. He turns to the maid and asks if he did something wrong. She looks away and says he did nothing wrong. He immediately turns to Agnes and smirks, "Hear that? He did nothing wrong." She looks at him and replies, "Forcing someone to lie. That's wrong. He is the one at fault." He crosses his arms and says he is far greater than that girl, greater than her and even this old man. They're all beneath him, and that's why it's only natural they listen to him. He points an accusatory finger at her and demands, "Is she hearing him?" She smiles darkly, thinking, that's more like it. It makes breaking him down all the more satisfying. She finally tells him it is true that his status is the highest among them, but that doesn't make his wrongdoing disappear. His status is probably one of the reasons that child grew up to be a tyrant. His parents passed away and he must have inherited the title of a marquis at a young age. In this mansion, he is second only to the Duke in status, so no one could discipline him carelessly. He ends up screaming saying she is being so loud, and then turns to the maid, snapping at her to take the insect and follow him. She hesitates, but he crosses his arms and lets her know. If he commands it, she must obey. Agnes thinks to herself what a nasty temper he has as she picks up the insect. Holding it up, she says she picked it up for him. Where should she take it? She knows he's aware she hates bugs, so he must be doing this on purpose. Calmly, she brings it closer to him. He suddenly blurts out who told her to touch it. She retorts he is the one who told her to carry it and follow him. He stares at the insect with wide eyes, and that's when it hits her. With a sly smile, she asks should they go to his room. Then, he screams, telling her to get it away from him as if he'd ever let something like this near his room. But she says aloud he is the one who told her to bring it, didn't he? She inwardly scoffs, so he's fine making others carry it around, but hates it when it is shoved in his face. She insists he show her the way to his room. She doesn't know her way around yet. He screeches at her not to follow him, yelling that he had told her to get it away. Was she not going to get lost already? Then, without warning, he kicks her in the leg and snarls, where does an ugly thing like her get off being so smug? She falls to her knees from the blow, pointing a finger at her. He sneers, serves her right. She shouldn't appear before him again. She makes him want to puke. She reminds herself to stay calm. She's not angry. She shouldn't get angry at a child. He takes off his shoes while warning her that if she doesn't want to end up like the bug, she should get out. That's when she realizes he must really hate bugs. But then in a low voice, she tells him there's something she needs to teach him before their lesson begins. He looks at her like she's lost her mind and mumbles, asking if she's crazy. She picks up his shoe, the flattened bug still stuck to the sole, and calmly announces that one must wear shoes when going outside. She adds that she'll put them back on for him, then begins walking toward him. In a sing-song voice, she calls out, "Come here, Timothy." The shoes are sad because Timothy took them off. Horrified, he bolts for the door, yelling that this woman must be crazy. She chases after him, insisting she needs to put his shoes on for him. He leads her all the way to the roof of the servants' quarters before turning around and saying she's really persistent. She simply tells him to give up. Obediently no, she corrects herself. She means he should wear his shoes. He snaps that he doesn't need to and warns her not to come any closer. She asks what he's going to do about it. He declares he's going to fire her. But she calmly points out that he's not the one who hired her, so he can't fire her. Frustrated, he begins stomping his feet against the rooftop, shouting shut up. He doesn't want to. She notices the roof cracking beneath him and realizes it could collapse if he's not careful. Finally, she softens her voice and tells him she understands, then urges him to come over to her because it's dangerous. He shoots back. She thinks he will listen to an ugly person like her. She promises to throw the shoe away and even steps back a few paces, warning him it'll be dangerous if he falls. He snarls at her not to be so smug, snapping that something like this is only dangerous to an adult like her. She warns him not to keep stomping. That's when he yells at her to stop ordering him around. Who does she think she's teaching? How arrogant. It dawns on her this child isn't angry at her right now, no matter how much he hates bugs. There's no reason for him to have such deep-seated anger towards her whom he has just met. She finally tells him she understands and she will go down first so he can come down slowly. Once again, he starts stomping in defiance, but this time his foot slips and he nearly tumbles backward. She lunges forward and manages to catch him but loses her own balance and falls instead. Her eyes snap wide open. She's alive. The ground below turned out to be stable. She lets out a breath, deciding this is a very spectacular first day. It's a good thing Timothy didn't fall. All she came here to do was work as a private tutor, and now she's rolling around in horse manure. She winces and pinches her nose shut because it certainly smells like horse manure. Agnes was trying to act tough, but this is really not easy. Timothy is clearly the most mischievous of all the brats she has ever dealt with. The previous children didn't curse at people and they were afraid of their parents and adults. Most importantly, they did not harbor a baseless anger towards adults. Now she realizes she shouldn't have lost her temper. She's not a child. To think it has come to this on the first day, she needs to reflect. Suddenly, the horse sniffs her, causing her to let out a small scream. A voice off to the side mutters so she is not a corpse. She quickly turns to the source of the voice only to find Duke Battenberg standing before her. He looks down at her and says curtly, "Get up. This is Kisha's spot, the man who killed her." She's so frightened she can't move a muscle. He seems irritated and repeats himself, saying he believes he already told her to move. The nerve of him. She thinks talking like that to someone who just fell. But then she reminds herself, right now, he's just a guardian. If only he had educated his nephew properly. She muses bitterly. She looks up at him and says pointedly that when a person has fallen, the first thing to do is ask if they're okay. Then, extending her hand toward him, she asks, isn't he going to offer her his hand? He questions flatly why should he do that. She answers without hesitation, because a person has fallen over. Is he going to ignore a lady in distress? Or if not, that is it because he's afraid of getting a little horse manure on him. But he says he has no reason to help her. She shoots back, people don't need a reason to help each other. He adds he also has no reason to listen to a sermon, and without a reason, there is no need to do something he doesn't want to do. He finally asks who is she. He hasn't seen her before, but she knows him. But she's still hooked on the earlier conversation and calmly replies there are things he must do even without a reason. He repeats he asked who is she. But she continues that helping someone in trouble or looking after and caring for a nephew who lost his parents. He says he doesn't think that is any of her business. She inches closer and says it is, he will regret living that way, insisting he should believe her, though she won't let it come to that. Once again he asks who she is. Just then, the door swings open and Timothy runs in asking if she's alive. The butler calls out her name too but stops short when he notices the Duke standing there. The Duke spots his nephew and asks when he arrived but then goes unusually quiet. She watches the silence unfold, and in that moment, she can see exactly what their relationship is like. If he pressures a kid like that, of course he's going to rebel. Without thinking, she grabs his hand and says he asked who she is. Starting today, she'll be working as a governess. Agnes May Graham. Their eyes lock. He repeats, a governess. She replies yes, and now he should introduce himself too. She already did. He answers Ethan Henry Battenberg, then glances down at her hand and comments flatly that it's dirty. Could she let go of him? She releases him and lifts her hands dramatically, declaring that now she has not one, but two students. Both Timothy and the butler stare at her, clearly horrified. The butler blurts out should he fire her, but the Duke waves him off and says forget it. She said she'll keep him from regretting, so no need to kick her out. Before leaving, he adds that they'll see how long she lasts. She yells after him, says the one who should talk, but then collapses to the floor with a thud. She really thought she was going to die again. Facing the man who once killed her, it was scarier than she expected. Timothy rushes to her side, asking if she's hurt. Did she break her leg? She turns to him with a small smile and asks if he's worried about her. A blush creeps up his cheek, and he quickly denies it. And now, she sees that he's got a surprisingly cute side too. He asks if she's hurt or not and orders him to just answer him already. At night she lies on the bed, tired, but it was fruitful. She met both causes of her death. She would say she even found the cause by now. Since she knows the cause, she will soon find the solution too. The indifferent uncle, the bad-tempered nephew. She knows Timothy is definitely a brat, but there's room for improvement since he does worry if someone is hurt. She guesses he's not all bad inside. She believes she can change him. Conversation is the greatest tool humans have, but everything always has exceptions. In exceptional situations, first they have to learn that person's language. Flustered, he questions if it is okay for an adult to act like this. She dawdled on his face while he was sleeping. She counters who was it that let frogs loose on her bed. He states it is still too much. She questions is there some law that says only kids can play pranks? He snaps. How is that a prank? She replies it's a prank. At least she didn't torment the frogs. He throws in who cares about some stupid frogs. She points out 2 frogs died because of him. He crosses his arms and asks why is it his fault? And adds even if they leave those things alone, they will all die anyway. Obviously he is more important than some worthless frogs. Now she realizes there is more than 1 or 2 things to teach him. She asks him if he is greater than a frog. He replies of course he is a person. She then questions, so being a person makes him greater than a frog? He counters why is she asking something so obvious? She doesn't even know that. She asserts she doesn't know. Will he teach her? He claims obviously people can do more things. They live longer. They're smarter. They're stronger, so that is why they do not need to care about frogs. She argues with that logic. She is greater than Timothy. She has lived longer. She's taller. She's stronger too. He fires off she is lower ranked than him. She shoots back then if someone is higher ranked than Timothy, are they always superior? Does that mean they can bully him? This gives him a pause. What is she talking about? She tells him to think about it himself. He is a smart kid, so he must feel something. If he senses that something about his words felt off, that is enough. He ends up saying she is really weird. Do people usually go this far just over a little prank? But she tells him she thinks he's smart. He asks what is with that all of a sudden. Is she buttering him? Flattery won't work. She tells him he should respect smart people. That is why she is doing this. She is trying to respond in his way. He mutters she has basically been saying the same thing from the start, and adds it is sophistry. She is surprised he can use that word. He shoots back, is she calling him dumb right now? She teases, is this because he can't? It is okay. Just knowing a word like that is impressive. He whines, is she seriously going to keep looking down on him? And tells her to hand him some paper. He writes down the word. She knows that growing up, he probably never received proper education, yet he writes neatly and without a single mistake. When he finishes, she leans in to look at it and remarks that it's really impressive. His handwriting is incredibly neat too. He shoots back, of course. Does she know who he is? She glances back at the paper, thinking to herself that a kid is still just a kid. After all, he stares at her, but the moment she turns to look at him, he quickly looks away. She then asks if he knows how many other words he can write. He gazes ahead, silently thinking what a truly strange teacher she is. She gazes at the clock and says it's already snack time, then tells Timothy to go ask the butler for something to eat and come right back. She adds be back by 4 o'clock. He scoffs and says not to be ridiculous. Why should he? She makes a face at him and says, is he planning to run away? Scaredy cat. He snaps, what? Who is she calling a scaredy cat? She shrugs and tells him he can run away if he wants to. Then, ruffling his hair, she announces if he is not back by 4:10, she will come get himself. He slaps her hand away, muttering all right, that's enough. Before rushing out of the room, she watches him go, thinking she might grow fond of him faster than she expected. She wonders how much longer it'll take for him to open up to her. She doesn't know when that moment will come, but she tells herself not to be impatient. Then she glances at her pocket watch and thinks she has about an hour until 4. She should hurry. It's already been 10 days since she started working at the Battenberg estate. Ask for the information she has gathered during that time. 1. Timothy Evan Reynolds. 1. He loves playing childish pranks. 2. He hates bugs and amphibians. 3. No matter how much he hates them, he will endure them for the sake of a prank. 4. He gets his feelings hurt more easily than one can think, especially when he hears something that sounds like they are giving up on him. 5. When that happens, he just clenches his jaw and glares. He is not an easy child to handle by any means, but if she takes her time, she is sure he will open his heart to her eventually. She steps up to the giant door and greets Johann, who stands calmly beside it. He glances at her and says she is here again today, but no matter how much she insists, he still can't open the door for her. But there is one problem here that is even harder to solve than Timothy. She tells Johann then she will just lie down right here again, because she didn't have one student, she had 2. Johann pleads with her to contain herself. This is no way for a lady to behave. She smiles and says, isn't it too late to worry about that now? Doesn't he think? She drops to the floor and lies spread out, declaring she doesn't have time for this. She's going to lie here and wail. Is that what he wants? He rushes toward her but stops just short, panicking as he tells her not to do this again and quietly asks her to get up. She claims she's just trying to report his lesson progress to his guardian. Why is he stopping her? Johann says His Excellency told her to report to the head butler. She, however, argues a student's progress report should be given directly to the guardian whether he likes it or not. This is all part of a lesson. He says that is true and trails off. She reminds him he said His Excellency hates noisy commotions more than troublesome, right? If she causes a bigger scene here, they will both get in trouble. It would be better if at least he didn't get scolded, wouldn't it? From inside, a voice calls out, telling them to let her in. She immediately rushes toward the door, calling over her shoulder, see, now hurry up and open it. Johann exhales, catching his breath as he wonders why does His Excellency let her in every single time. Is she receiving special treatment just because she's the first tutor to last 10 days? Everyone seems grateful to her for handling the young master's pranks with such a cheerful attitude, but is this really cheerfulness? She barges into the room without hesitation, announcing her arrival with a loud she's coming in. Johann shivers just outside the door, thinking it's not cheerfulness, it's fearlessness. As she comes to stand before the Duke, she quietly notes to herself that this is the second piece of information she's gathered here. He believes he told her there's no need to report to her every day. Is she incapable of understanding? The second thing she learned is this man has absolutely no interest in Timothy. She counters, but he's the one who told him to let her in. She then hands over some papers and informs him it is Timothy's writing from today. He already knows how to write words like this. She lets him know Timothy is a clever boy. His vocabulary is more advanced than others his age. He's very agile too and suggests how about teaching him swordsmanship. But he simply says he will tell Carlo. She tells him he also put a frog in her bed last night. She suspects he caught it himself honestly. That's kind of impressive. Once again, he brushes her off, telling her to report it to Carlo. She calls out to him in growing irritation she is talking about his nephew right now, isn't she? He replies coolly he knows. That's why he's listening. She snaps at him not to say he's listening when he's not even looking at her. He clutches his head and mumbles how irritating. She leans in toward him and calmly points out raising a child is supposed to be difficult and irritating. Then she adds, more firmly to look at her when they're speaking, the only person Timothy fears is this man, his uncle. He must not want to be hated by him, even though he only ever does things that would make anyone hate him. A child who lost his parents overnight would naturally crave his guardian's affection. Normally one would think that he would at least check in on the boy once or twice out of pity, but he seems to give him no attention beyond his duties and swordsmanship. The way Agnes sees it, this man is just as bad at communicating as the child. No, at least a child confronts them with their emotions. In this sense, he's even worse than the child. It has been the same for 10 days. He never even pretends to listen. She wonders if he thinks she doesn't know he's just giving her short answers because it is faster than kicking her out. She decides not to let this slide today. He tells her he's providing that child with everything he needs. Shelter, food, servants, and even a tutor like her. If there's anything else he wishes to do, he's fully prepared to support it. He points out he is even taking the time now as his guardian to listen to a report on his academic progress. What more could a child possibly need to grow up? She thinks attention and love. She knows that what she's asking for sounds idealistic. After all, far more people would say that what a child needs is strict discipline, but she lets him know he needs a perfect family environment. He questions perfect, and claims that is an impossible condition from the start. He is not his parent, or is she suggesting he have him adopted? She replies that is not what she means. He knows it isn't, but he retorts he has not the faintest idea what she means. She takes a deep breath, knowing she cannot get through to him, and she supposes 10 days is not enough time to resolve a conflict that has been building for so long. She cannot just demand that he listens to everything she says, and she should be grateful he hasn't kicked her out yet, but she cannot help it and states just as it takes effort to understand Timothy's language, it seems she will also need to make an effort to understand his. He counters they are speaking the same standard imperial language. She asserts that is not the language she means. He fires back she only speaks in ways that are impossible to comprehend exactly. She agrees that is the language she's talking about. So with that in mind, she was thinking she should try to get closer to him first. He scoffs, saying he and her. He has no interest in wallowing in the mud. She slams her fist on the table and declares she doesn't have a hobby like that either. She reminds herself that education requires patience and silently vows they'll see who wins this battle. Pale skin and cool blue eyes. His striking black hair embodied the very definition of beautiful. Even as a man, beautiful suits his grace perfectly. His impeccable looks and top-tier status in the empire. Many admired and coveted him for it. His icy face betrayed no emotion, and his gaze alone carried an eerie pressure. He looks up at Johann and asks if he has something to say. Johann finally jolts back to his senses and apologizes. The Duke says he has been side-eyeing him and it's irritating. The documents are reviewed. Speak now he must. He admits he was actually curious about his conversation with the new governess. Most people fear him, but that governess didn't seem afraid at all. The Duke stares at him, prompting him to quickly blurt out that he didn't mean His Excellency threatens people or anything. But the Duke simply says she's not afraid, talks too much, too. He nods in agreement, then adds but everyone at the mansion praises the governess. Ever since she arrived, the young master's pranks have decreased. Every morning they're busy gossiping about what pranks she and the young master pulled. Johann adds he hears about it daily and the governess doesn't just take it lying down. The Duke listens with unexpected focus. When he suddenly blurts out that he'll be quiet and offers an apology, the Duke cuts in who told him to be quiet. Keep talking. Johann questions isn't he busy? His Highness the Crown Prince invited him to lunch. He gets on his feet, announcing in that case he will listen on the way. Johann blurts out he doesn't know that much. But Ethan tells him to just say what he knows. On his way, he thinks if she is bold enough to demand a handshake in a snake pit and fearless, she will last longer than most governesses. No need to fire her yet. She's clearly no ordinary person. He then thinks he has tolerated her voice so far, but that ends today. With his backlog of territory work done, he won't be at the mansion for a while. Her words telling him, he'll regret living like that echo in his mind. Now that she's here, she won't let him, she had said. He pauses, wondering to himself he never regretted anything in his life. Johann, noticing his silence, asks if something happened. He replies flatly nothing worth mentioning. At night, Agnes falls to the bed so exhausted. Humoring a kid's pranks and persuading a parent today has been brutal for her. She vowed to fix everything to avoid death, but dealing with uncooperative people is not easy for her. She vowed to fix everything to avoid death, but dealing with uncooperative people is not easy for her. At least Timothy is a child, easy to read. The problem is the second student. How is she supposed to figure him out? Agnes has handled many parents but never meddled with the indifferent type. She finds herself thinking, can she really trust this and walk away? This is not how she usually operates. No matter which family she works for, she has never overstepped boundaries. That has been her ironclad rule. A governess isn't family, just a hired hand. Meddling too much risks getting fired. She helps children grow, but she never forces her opinions on them. That is the line they must respect. But this time, she has a goal of her own. She cannot figure him out, and what else she cannot figure out is why won't he fire her. A bratty governess like this should have been dismissed already, yet he keeps her around despite the annoyance. But then she dismisses those thoughts and leans towards others. Now that she thinks about it, she has been scatterbrained since returning to the past. After hastily quitting the Westwick Earl's household, she regrets not properly saying goodbye to the children. In her past life, she kept in touch with the Westwick kids through letters. She wishes she could do the same for the Battenbergs just enough. Correct Timothy behavior, shield him from hurt and occasionally advise him. She knows he will. Only need a governess until age 10 at most. So 3 more years. She must create a perfect home environment by then. She wonders what even is perfect. First, he needs a guardian he's comfortable with. She finds herself wondering who did the Duke marry in the future. If the Duchess becomes Timothy's aunt, she would be another guardian. And what if Timothy rebelled because of that? She pulls at her hair, forcing herself to stop overthinking. She's off duty, yet still obsessing. The next day, she sits across from him, having tea, and remarks how peaceful and blissful refined tea time can be. She offers him more cookies, but he snaps hey. Unbothered, she tells him he should call her teacher or just Agnes is fine too. He frowns and asks, isn't she hired as a governess? She says yes, and he immediately follows up with then why is she just playing? She replies that she's strictly following class hours, but he retorts that chatting and playing aren't classwork. She calmly explains that she stayed up all night thinking of ways to bond with him joyfully thus. This brilliant play-based learning method. He snaps at her not to mock him. Does he look 3 to her? She leans forward and asks if maybe, just maybe, he actually wants to study. He fires back that of course not, that's not what he meant, so she suggests a bet. If she wins, they continue playing, but if he wins, they study something. He scoffs, asking if she thinks he's dumb. What a pathetic trap. She reminds him that she already agreed to her bet earlier, which was to catch him and he would give her unlimited tea time. He scowls and demands, what kind of adult gambles with a kid like their life depends on it? She can't lose on purpose, that would just hurt his pride. He shoots back ridiculous. And she calls herself an adult, but she only smiles and says the world of competition is merciless. She thinks she's got no choice, her life's on the line. Last night, she made a vow, sink or swim, she will charge forward. She looks at him with puppy eyes and says he knows very well how sincere she is when she tries to talk to Timothy. If she weren't sincere, how would she have managed to stuff all the mushy fruit stuffed into Timothy's slippers at dawn? She adds she even made sure to pick out only the spoiled ones because she wouldn't dare mess with good food. He snaps back, asking if he tied her hair to the bed just to get petty revenge. But now that she thinks about it, her hair had been braided very neatly. She tilts her head and asks who taught him. He falls silent. She realizes for a boy, the only one who'd brush or braid his hair would have been his mother. He finally mutters, why does she care? She leans down slightly, teasing she was thinking of asking him to braid it again. He recoils, is she insane? Does she really think he wants to touch her hair? She says but he did last night. He demands to know how she undid it. She replies proudly that she's just as good with her hands as Timothy. She even learned something useful from the experience. Someday, she'll do it for Timothy too. He glares at her, asking if she's nuts. Does she plan to sneak into his room again? Pouring herself some tea, she replies calmly not unless Timothy sneaks into hers first. He groans, she's impossible. She waves him over and tells him to come have some tea. He explodes, does he look like he wants tea right now? She calmly gestures for him to lower his voice and says they promise to be quiet during tea time. He sits down, grumbling as he mutters, what is she doing? Serve the tea already. She begins pouring tea for him, all the while wondering if he's holding back just because they're in the middle of the bet. Even if he's not answering, this isn't like that first day when he just sulked and shut down. Seems like things are going better than she feared. She hands him the tea with a smile. He mutters, what is she grinning for? Like some kind of creep? He adds, she's already ugly. She shouldn't make it worse by looking smug. She takes her thoughts back. There is still a long way to go. At night, he sneaks up with a bag in his hand, thinking what a strange person she is, so persistent. She has no status to speak of, yet she dares to go against the son of a marquis. This time, he plans to spill dye on her clothes. And if she's short on outfits, well, he has plenty of allowance to buy her a new one. But then a faint light catches his eye. He leans in closer, listening. Everyone should have returned to the dorms by now. One maid tells another that teachers really ought to know their place, but the other warns her to watch her mouth, she's a viscount's daughter. The first scoffs, saying if she's working for money, she's just like them. The second admits she must have once been a noble lady, but it's kind of sad really. Who would have thought she'd end up sucking up to that nasty little brat? The other maid adds she heard her family's struggling, that her father was scammed, and guesses that's why she's stuck dealing with that little demon. Timothy turns around, convincing himself they're just a bunch of people talking nonsense. But he instantly stops when one of them questions if watching a kid like him is hard. One of them replies of course it is. She says it's just a job, but if they want to earn a living, they've got to endure it. He suddenly runs off. Suddenly, the die bursts across her, the sharp sting forcing her awake with a jolt, wondering who would use something this strong only to find him standing right in front of her. She calls out his name, warning him that throwing it on someone's face could make them blind, but he only glares at her. She calls out again, softer now, sensing something wrong. He tells her to get out of his sight. Her expression shifts as she realizes he's not acting like himself. She gently asks him what's wrong. He says she's just like the rest, no different from the other adults. She gets up slowly and crouches in front of him, asking if that's really how she seems to him. His eyes tear up as he demands to know, is money that important to her? She's only doing this for money, right? Pretending to tolerate him even though she hates dealing with someone like him. Her heart twists and she asks who told him that? Who said those things to him? He replies bitterly that he heard everything. They said it and so did she. That her house went under. That she came here for the big money. It must pay a lot to deal with someone like him, right? She thinks talking like that in front of a child. Agnes probably gave a vague answer just to dodge awkward questions, and this is the result. Still, she cannot be fully honest either. He finally goes quiet, his voice barely a whisper as he asks why she won't say anything. She gently reaches out to hold his hand and says what does he want her to say when he's right. She admits she came here to earn money. Teaching is her job. She doesn't know exactly who he's referring to, but whether it's that person or herself, both are here because they were hired. They're paid to do what they do and she can't deny that. At first, he murmurs all the same, but then his voice rises into a shout. Ever since mom and dad died, they're all the same. Even Bane, who came first and now her too. Uncle Ethan, who only took him in because he had to, always complaining it's a hassle. And her, she said she liked him, just like Bane did but behind his back. She's probably thinking no one would ever deal with someone like him unless it was for a paycheck. She watches him, eyes soft with sorrow, wondering just how lonely he must have been to crave real affection from complete strangers. He turns away, telling her that if all she wants is money, then she should just go and not to give him that look. She asks what look, and he snaps he doesn't know, just not to confuse him like she's trying to say he's cute, like a mom would, and just tells her to leave. She sighs, watching him cling to her, and thinks to herself if he truly wanted her to disappear then he wouldn't be holding on to her like this. He silently wipes his tears. She pulls him into his arms saying why would he splash the dye? It would have been better if he would have said something before throwing it. Flustered, he says, what is she doing? What if some of the dye got on him? But she only asks if he really likes her that much. She leans back to look at him and admits she used to like him a little too much. Honestly, she might be a money-driven person, and yes, she did come here for the money, but she can work elsewhere too. But who would leave such an adorable student behind? A tear escapes his eye before he quickly hugs her again. The dye stings her face. Of all the ones he could have picked, he had to choose the most potent one. She hasn't even had proper sleep and her whole body feels like it could collapse at any moment. But she can't send the kid back now, not when he's finally opened up to her. She tells herself to hold it together. She can't collapse yet. When she opens her eyes, her vision is blur. The Duke stands there. She loses consciousness in his arms. Somewhere in that fading haze, someone calls out to her, telling her she doesn't have to push herself so hard, that she has to live her own life, that it's time to stop sacrificing everything for her parents. That her engagement was called off, but maybe it's time she starts thinking about marriage. She told everyone she's fine, that she's not pushing herself, but how could she not? They're her parents. How could she ever do less? What is she supposed to live on if she quits? Who's going to pay for her dad's medicine? Her sisters all got married off and don't help out at all. They act like it is easy. She then watches Timothy, who sits on the floor, and asks her what is she staring at, not wanting her to look down on her. She replies she cannot help it. She is standing after all. He declares he hates it when people look down on him the most. Makes him want to stab them. Reminds him of his dear uncle. He always looked at him with such contempt. She inches closer and tells him if he has something to say to his uncle, say it himself. He sighs and says, who said he wanted her to pass it on? Whatever. Does she need something? He replies yes. The one thing the children need most. A father who can actually speak to them like a sane human being. The kids need a father. He says this is what she's going with and tells her they don't need that. He has already provided them with a place to live, meals, attendance, and even a teacher. What more could they possibly need? That line from the Duke. No wonder it sounded familiar. When she regains consciousness, she slowly looks around, confused, wondering where she is. Her face stings. Someone nearby notes that it looks like her eyesight isn't damaged, and then adds it seems like someone was worried after all. She scoffs, retorting that of course she was. Can they imagine going blind because of a kid's prank? He tells her the doctor confirmed her vision is fine. Finally the voice draws her attention. She immediately sits up, eyes locking onto the Duke. She blurts out, what is he doing here? He calmly replies that Timothy is under his care and so this incident falls under his responsibility. She demands to know if he's been sitting by her side this whole time. He tells her not to imagine strange things, he only arrived a short while ago. The doctor had been with her until just now. He adds that she's lucky. It could have been a far more serious injury. Then he rises to his feet and tells her that if she wants, she can resign. He'll ensure she's generously compensated. She fires back that no one said she was quitting. She's not planning to at all. And she doesn't need any compensation either. He gives a faint nod, saying he figured she'd say that, but even so he just doesn't get it. He doesn't understand why she's pushing herself so hard. As he speaks, the words from earlier echo in her mind, you don't have to push yourself so hard. But she already knows no one would truly understand. Even the idea of wanting to change the future feels like a ridiculous notion now. Maybe she really is crazy. His fingers lift her chin, and he leans in slightly, studying her eyes. She blinks, completely caught off guard until he smirks and says it's a relief. She won't have a scar on her face. Then he lets go of her and tells her to get some more rest. He'll be leaving now and if she has anything to relay, she should tell Carlo. Later, during sword training with the Crown Prince, the prince asks if he's even listening. Ethan apologizes, admitting his mind was elsewhere, and asks him to repeat that. The prince asks if he's really daydreaming while sparring. Without missing a beat, Ethan swiftly defeats him and with a calm breath asks if he wants to go again. The prince asks how can he not even pretend to be difficult. But the prince says, what could he possibly wish from him? That is enough for today. He wonders when he will finally get to see him all disheveled and humiliated. Ethan picks up the sword and remarks he has quite the twisted tastes. Ethan says if he wishes, he could show him, but the Crown Prince retorts that is what he would call a twisted taste. He adds that makes it boring, meaningless too, so Ethan says it seems twisted tastes cannot be ranked after all. The Crown Prince mocks that even so, he's still better than Ethan, but then trails off, eyes shifting toward the side. He says looks like they came to watch again today, then asks what is he going to do about it. Ethan replies does he have any other choice? Tristan says he just feels bad. He cannot stop her either. Just then, Dahlia's voice rings out as she waves from a short distance, calling out to her brother with a bright smile. She turns to the Duke and says she is glad they have been seeing each other often lately. He just responds with what a coincidence. She says a coincidence indeed. She must be lucky. Tristan glances between both of them before stepping up and telling his cousin it was nice seeing her, but they have an important meeting now. The Duke starts saying but he wasn't informed of any meeting, but the prince pushes him, telling him he's helping him here. On their way, Tristan asks Ethan is he really not interested at all. Dahlia would make a fine bride. Ethan doesn't miss a beat, not interested. Tristan points out isn't it about time he started his own family? He replies his highness is in the same boat, isn't he? To which the prince confesses he's dating someone and recommends him to think about an heir too. He simply says he will adopt a bright child from a branch family. The prince frowns and says, that's not what he meant. Ethan asks then is he suggesting he should toy with his cousin and toss her aside afterward? The prince shoots back is he insane? Ethan replies evenly he is not interested in that sort of thing either. The prince eyes him for a beat, then glances down suspiciously. Unless he means Ethan cuts him off before he can finish he is healthy thank you. He then says if there is nothing else, he will be going, thinking to himself, he would rather grow old and die alone than end up like his sister. But then the Crown Prince calls after him, asking is Greta's son doing well? Ethan replies calmly that he is. The prince catches up to him, placing a hand on his shoulder. He says that's good to hear and adds give his nephew his regards as well. Just before parting, he pauses and adds one more thing. Dahlia says she could raise her husband's nephew as if he were her own. He used to vaguely think of getting married someday, but what made him change his mind completely was his sister Greta. The daughter of the House of Battenberg was framed for her beauty and intelligence. She also had a remarkable talent in swordsmanship and was quite the rival to her. She once told him he always led with his left foot when he attacked. He was doing exactly what she did at his age. Like brother, like sister, but he warned her not to lump him in with her. She asked if he hated being told he resembled her that much. He replied of course it was disgusting. She remarked interesting, so that was his final will huh? He said not to get cocky just because he let her win last time. She reminded him she had beaten him 6 more times in swordsmanship. He retorted he was catching up fast. Greta joined the royal guard alongside him and achieved outstanding results. He hated to admit it, but she was someone with many admirable qualities. The moment she changed so suddenly was when she met the Marquis of Reynolds. Greta in love was utterly foolish. After inheriting her title through marriage, she became so busy she couldn't spare a moment. He never once saw his sister again after she got married, but in the letters they occasionally exchanged, she seemed to be doing well. The Greta he saw again after 8 years was lying silently in a coffin, and that was the same time when he was introduced to his nephew Timothy. He looked at him, realizing he took after the Marquis of Reynold. Bringing home a nephew he had never met in his life wasn't out of sympathy or anything. The Marquis of Reynold and his wife died in a fall while hunting on their estate. He couldn't believe his sister, who was better at riding than anyone, died falling off a horse while hunting. The hunting grounds where Greta died belonged to the Reynolds family, and no one would know what exactly happened there. If he hadn't brought Timothy here, everything would have gone to the people who killed her, including all the wealth and power that would have been his. He believes it won't take long to catch the culprit. He's jolted from his thoughts when he sees her fumbling at the door. He says he always talks his ears off, and now she has more to say. She replies that just shows how diligently she works. She then asks him, is he heading out again today? He replies, why is she asking? To which she says he didn't say no, so she will take that as a yes. It is just that even though she insisted she was fine, the doctor forced her to take 5 days off. If she goes home, Timothy will be left alone, and she just cannot help but worry. She questions how lonely it must be to eat alone so suddenly. He tells her that is not something she should be worrying about. She turns around, tiptoeing toward the door, but just as she reaches it, she pauses and says softly that he's right, though Timothy's stable manners still need a lot of work. Once again, he catches that scared look. She turns fully to face him and admits she was hoping he could help. Just while she's gone, would he have dinner with Timothy? He says he's busy. She insists then just today. It will only take about an hour. He replies coldly that he's not free enough to waste an hour on something so pointless, and tells her to leave if she's done. She falls silent, a touch of sadness flickering across her face, and for a moment, he wonders if she's finally lost that stubborn spirit. He repeats that she should leave, but she lifts her gaze and calmly says she was thinking of how she might persuade him to help. He remarks that a deal only works if both sides have something to gain. She says he does have something to offer. Then she declares compensation. What if he helped her as restitution? He scoffs, asking if she's seriously suggesting that a scratch on her cheek is worth his time, but she answers without hesitation it's not the injury that's expensive. It's his sense of responsibility. He remarks that she's good with words. She tells him to think it over, it's not such a bad offer, and reminds him he said he would take responsibility for Timothy's action. He tells her enough. He gets it and tells her to leave. She beams at him, saying really? He warns say one more word and he will pretend none of this happened and she will be fired on the spot. She pretends to zip her lips shut. He jerks his thumb toward the door and says get out. Outside, she's beaming with happiness thinking she did it. It took longer than expected, but it worked. Good thing he owed her one. Outside, she comes across Carlo, who tells her her leave was granted this morning and asks what is she still doing here. She replies she just couldn't bring herself to leave like this. The butler hands her bag to her and asks if she's finished her business. She replies more or less. He admits she is impossible. He says she keeps pulling the same tricks even though she's the one who asked them to teach the troublemaker. She points at herself and blurts out she's not that bad. He argues in some ways she is worse. At least the young master hasn't gotten hurt. There hasn't been a quiet day since she arrived. All she can offer is an apology. He tells her he doesn't mean it badly. He just hopes she will be careful too. He then says it will be dark soon. He has had a carriage prepared and requests her to come with him. She assures him it is all right. She can get home just fine on her own. But he reminds her she is still a patient. As she follows him, she acknowledges he is really a good person. If someone like him had stayed by Timothy's side in the future, would things have turned out differently? She then slows down, asking if she could see Timothy before she goes. He replies absolutely not. Now that she thinks about it, she hasn't seen him since that morning. Still, she has done everything she could for this mansion before leaving for 5 days. The butler guides her to the carriage. She thanks him and says she will see him in 5 days. She has been meaning to check on her situation anyway. Maybe this is for the best. She can look into a few things while she is at it. First she will go home, and now that she thinks about it, she treated her mother horribly. The day she returned to the past, she struggled to breathe, unsure where the dream ended and reality began. She was shocked to find herself back in the house she used to live in. Her mother had entered her room looking worried and asked what was that look. Did she have a nightmare? And then she fainted right away. Could they blame her? Her mother, who had died long ago, suddenly appeared. As soon as she woke up again, she started asking if she was really alive, what the date was. She thinks imagine a daughter waking up from fainting and firing off questions like that. She then rushed to get a new job at the Duke's house, thinking she had to change the future. She's 22 years old right now, 22, which is 14 years ago. During this time, Agnes had just started working and barely had time to breathe before her parents passed. Sure, she needed the money, but working non-stop also helped her forget everything going on at home. Since she had to comfort her mother as she cried, saying sorry again and again, These days her feelings toward them have faded. Of course she loved them and did her best to support them, but maybe, because of that, she didn't have regrets. Every bit of money she earned went to them. The little she managed to save was just enough to give them a proper funeral. There were days she missed them, but maybe the pressure of being their only provider for so long made the relief even greater. And now, as she eats with her mother, maybe that is why this is so hard. Her mother asks her what is wrong. Doesn't she have an appetite? She replies no, she was just lost in thought. She doesn't know how to act in front of her young mother. Her mother asks there won't be a scar on her face, right? What on earth happened? What kind of child does that to a teacher? She replies it had nothing to do with the student. Her mother says, still, what kind of rough environment leads to a face injury like that? The Westwick family treated her so well. What kind of family did she go to that she had to quit in such a rush? She replies the pay is better there. They even give her 5 days off just for a minor injury. Her mother then says she's not even married yet and she moved in as a live-in governess, but she tells her mother she doesn't plan on getting married. Living alone is more peaceful and comfortable. She then shifts the conversation, asking if the older sisters stopped by. Her mother replies they both stopped in briefly. To Agnes, her mother looks younger, clumsier and more delicate than she remembers. She is happy to see her again, but at the same time, she feels unfamiliar and distant. Her mother mentions that they left quickly because they were busy. She says she really wanted to ask them something. Her mother asks what is it? If it's urgent, just call them. It's not like they live far. If they find out she is hurt, they will come running. She hesitates, then admits it's about the Duke of Battenberg. His Grace has remained single all this time and she was wondering if there's some arranged engagement passed down through the generations. She questions if her mother knows anyone who's destined to become the Duchess. Suddenly, her mother's face lights up with excitement and says not to tell her, but before she can finish, her daughter chokes on her water and accidentally spits it straight at her mother. She tells her whatever she's thinking. No, absolutely not. And that concludes the video today. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Leave a comment if you want another part.